collected, the caterpillars for the monarch butterfly with the kiddos, and she pointed out that right before that caterpillar forms the cocoon around it, the head of the caterpillar drops off and doesn't end up in the cocoon. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if there's a lesson we must learn as humans, is we need to get rid of the head before it gets into the mess of the cocoon. We do not want the mind to be part of our new expression, in the sense that all of that memory, all the emotional trauma must be let go, or else the butterfly cannot emerge. If the cognitive dissonance that has been the split human mind is carried forward, we will not be here for the next expression of life on Earth. And so, can we lose our head before we completely dissolve, and therefore express the new thing? And so this is our challenge to one another. I think that what we need to do ultimately, sit around fire in silence in the dark, hold hands in that space, and stop telling stories. Because right now it's the stories of humanity that have perpetuated our reality. And we need to dream a new dream out of the silence. And that silence, if you've ever experienced it in nature, is so loud. There is so much happening there. And my favorite thing about growing up in Colorado was I was very fortunate to get into an extraordinary troop of Boy Scouts that were typical Boulder, Colorado, had absolutely only the anti-establishment attitude in those 18 boys that grew up together, and we had such radical experiences in nature together. It was so dangerous, the silly stuff we did. We were in minus 19 degree weather, camping in completely unprepared conditions. Like, we just had crappy gear and everything else, and we're now 50 degrees below freezing, and we spit ourselves dry that night. We were so dehydrated in the morning because we couldn't stop spitting, because at 50 degrees below zero, your spit freezes right before it hits the ground. So you could spit at a rock and you could hear your spit pink off of the thing, because it was already an ice cube by the time it hit the stone. And so we were spitting and laughing all night long and just having a freaking ball. And then we finally went to sleep, probably 2 o'clock in the morning or something, as boys will do as they're left alone. And I had to get up to pee, which wasn't typical for me at that time zone of my life. I could usually not pee for 12 hours. Probably hadn't peed in 12 hours. But I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was scared to go outside, because suddenly you're 13 years old and it's pitch dark, and I think it's going to be scary. You finally get out of your tent, and I walked out into this winter paradise of white snow at 3 o'clock in the morning with everybody sleeping around me. And it was the first time in my life that I truly felt independent. And I was suddenly this being on top of this mountain at 10,000 feet above sea level in these frigid cold levels. And when it's minus 19, 50 degrees below freezing, everything is holding still. Like, nothing can move in that temperature. So the silence was just deafening. And then I looked up and the stars were right on top of me. Like, when you're at that altitude and that level of cold, there's no humidity in Colorado to begin with, and you make it that cold, and there's literally no interference in the visual phase between the Milky Way and your eyes. And I felt like I was falling into the Milky Way, or I was a part of it. And at 13, I think that was one of the moments my life pivoted, and I suddenly got a glimpse of who I am, and it was much bigger than I had ever perceived before. And I felt this hugeness in me, and I felt this huge vastness in nature. And then I heard so much, and it was like suddenly my ears were just like overwhelmed by the noise of the silence, and I felt like I could hear the vibration of the stars. I felt like I could hear the breath of some squirrel in some frozen tree nearby, and like there was just so much happening around me in this utter silence. And that's what we're going to have to do together, is we're going to have to fall into these spaces where we become so aware of the silence between human activities, between human thoughts, between human memories, and have the humility to stop telling human stories, to listen into the story of the moss. And what is the moss going to tell us if we listen? And I believe if our extinction becomes complete, it will be the most beautiful of hospice journeys, which I have seen many of. I've seen many, many beautiful settings down of the body, and there's never an end point. It's always a rebirth. It's always an expansion. And we will expand beautifully, and we will become something greater than ourselves when we go into our extinction, if we're listening. My concern, if I have one right now, for our extinction is not that we're going to, perhaps decide to go down that path and complete this journey into extinction. It's that we're going to do that path and not be awake and not be listening, and therefore not learn from the journey. And that would be a disrespect to the 200,000 years of Homo sapiens that have come before us. And so may we wake up, if for no other reason, for the sake of the ancestors, if for no other reason, for the children that could come if we don't go extinct. Let us think about our position in human history for a moment with a sense of opportunity, not just gravity, but opportunity to listen beyond ourselves, to stop listening to the egoic narratives of humanness and start to listen to nature's story. And it's going to be a spectacular awakening, as all hospice journeys are. And it's a relief. It's a relief. I want all of you to know it's just going to be beautiful no matter what. And it will be more beautiful if we do it with a lot more silence and a lot more reverence for the observation of nature around us. And then there gets to be this beautiful point in every hospice journey where suddenly nobody's concerned about living anymore, and they just want to be right here, right now. And every breath becomes uber present. And when you walk into the room with somebody who is staring into the face of their loved one, maybe for the first time in their lives present, everybody cries. Because there's so much beauty coming through that person. And they might be nonverbal at that point. But my God, the presence in their eyes, you feel like you can fall into their eyes, into the cosmos itself, right through their eyes, because they are so still at that moment, and they are so aware, taking in the face and every detail on their loved one at that moment. And that presence becomes this gravitational force, and you suddenly can start to feel space-time bending, and suddenly that next breath feels like it's a year away, and suddenly that person's living a whole lifetime. Because they are in this moment seeing more beauty in the human face before them than they ever did in watching that child birth from them, grow up, birth their own kids, whatever that 80-year journey has born. That last couple seconds is suddenly they see the beauty of everything, and they're so tuned in and so amazed by what they see. And you can sense all of that just being witness to this observation, witness to a being that is seeing the full beauty of another human at that moment. And for that, seeing their own beauty and realizing their path was perfect, no matter how broken or failed they thought it was a few minutes ago, they realized it was all beautiful. I am beautiful. My journey was perfect. And I am part of a tapestry of humanity that's marching us to a new expression of energy that can neither be destroyed or created. It is just here. The energetics of 7.8 billion souls is here right now. And it's vibrating. And if we take the time to look into another face, it said that if we look into another's eye for 2 minutes, we will fall in love. That is to say that you will see their beauty. That's what falling in love is that you suddenly see beauty, and the reaction to seeing beauty is a vibration that we have come to call love. And I think it takes far less than 2 minutes to make that thing happen. I think it takes 2 minutes to shut down your freaking brain and shut down some of your, insecurities of actually looking at somebody. But it only takes a millionth of a second to actually be still enough to see it. And then the love is greater than it's ever been in your life. That's a discipline that is fast coming to its necessity for humans to stay in play. Can we look into each other's face? Well, shut the fuck up and just look at each other. And that's hard for me because not only is my whole career been about what comes out of me, the words I have, the medical knowledge I have, my personal metrics were that I would give somebody else something. And if I wasn't leaving somebody more enriched by the exchange, then what was I worth? And so we're so used to only being valuable if we're doing that we can't be still. And it's very hard for me to have enough self-respect and self-love to really become still before somebody. Because to do that is just coming to a reverence of realizing you are a sovereign being, and I can do nothing to bring you into a higher state of being, because it all is from source. Whatever energy is animating your body is in absolute perfect relationship to your biology. And if it's not, it's probably because somebody is doing something to it. So all we can really do is take each other out of coherence with self, out of coherence with our full power. So to actually witness somebody is to completely give up the belief that you can make their life better, that you can somehow love them. I don't know if we even love each other. I think we can love energetics of being here right now. And a relationship is a powerful way to bring yourself into the present moment and stare into a mirror until you become still. Relationships tend to blow apart when we can't be still, and we continue to do stuff to one another energetically. And so it's a very interesting moment that we're in. So strange that to survive, all we have to do is stop doing. So strange that all we have to do to fall in love is to be witness to somebody rather than know them or convince them that we're important to them or offer something to them. It's just, I can tell you that it is something I have not perfected yet, and I'm on a journey to find it myself, because those prophecies are telling us this decade somebody's gonna freaking do it. Somebody's gonna phase change. And I don't really care if it's me or not, but I sure want to be part of that vortex of energy spinning closer and closer to that moment, so that somebody will pop. And when two people finally can see each other, the vibration of love on this planet at that moment between those two beings will catapult us into this new expression, new biologic expression, new genetic expression, new energetic expression, everything else, because they finally saw each other